Okay, I had some channel viewers make a request for a current gear rundown. I think I last did one of these back in maybe 2016. We were living in another home and have since moved, and I've had a little bit of some gear turnover since that time. So I thought I might go ahead and do a more updated gear rundown. Not that, it's really all that special or it really matters, but I had a couple of requests and I've got some time this evening, so I thought I'd go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is kind of a real quick overview of my new music room. Nothing too fancy. Some stuff on the walls, some guitars, album covers, some art, more guitars, some amps, more guitars, and the wife's exercise space is over here. But we won't talk about that tonight. And then carrying over here, more on this side, more stuff on the walls, amps, albums, guitars, etc. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and give you a rundown of what I've currently got in the room, even though some of it was on the previous video, some of it wasn't. So I'm going to start here with this 2001 Paisley Fender Telecaster. Nothing too special. Crafted in Japan, so no big deal. But I did put a Bixby on it, which you don't see too many Paisley Teles that have Bixbys. This one is a Fender licensed vibrato. And I also threw DiMarzio Twang Kings in the guitar some years ago. The bridge pickup gives it a very kind of, almost ice picky sound, unless you do some other adjusting with your pedals and so forth. Putting the switch in the neck position there will really give you an ice picky sound, whereas if you kick it up into the neck position, well, then you have what's purported to be one of the best neck pickups available for a Telecaster. The DiMarzio Twang King neck pickup is indeed a wonderful pickup. Just really strong, powerful, full, warm sound. So I highly recommend those. And, I'm not sure why this guitar has stayed in my collection the longest. Of course, I love Paisley Telecasters. I pretty much love anything Paisley. As any of you who watch my channel know, I've had a number of different Paisley guitars, some stock, some custom. But this one, for whatever reason, has just stayed in my collection the longest. And just love the Tele sound. Okay, so I've got I'm a psychologist, and so I've got the chaise lounge here that I usually sit on to make my videos with my cheapy Union Jack pillow there that I bought, somewhere on Carnaby Street or something in London some years ago. Some guitar straps, some art on the walls. Here I've got some Paul Weller releases. I think these came from Japan, actually. Sunflower, Wildwood. I'm a huge Weller fan, primarily springing from the Jam, but also loved the Style Council. And also his solo stuff up until, 2009, 2010. And I've really just kind of lost interest since that time, I'm sad to say. I will always love Paul Weller and his music, but his current stuff just doesn't grab me the way the older stuff does. And Wildwood, wow. Second albums are usually not fabulous, so I've heard, and that's kind of the cliche. But Wildwood was, Weller had released, I don't know how many albums by then, 8 or 10 or 12, so it's really not a second album. But for a solo period, second album, Wildwood, I think, is Weller at the very top of his solo writing career. So got that there, really like that print. Got one here that I picked up. It's a rare, small, almost little bookmarky kind of thing that I had framed in this blue velvet to pull out the blue in Weller's eyes. This is about Weller being back, his debut solo LP, which I think is a wonderful piece of work. So this little frame piece celebrates that, and then this one here is just really cool. It's also Japanese, I think, but it's Weller on a Hofner bass, so it looks like he's kind of working out some good shit there. Okay, so to the immediate right of that is a Rickenbacker model 1993 Plus from 2015, the first year that they came out with these. And like I said in the previous video, then the good thing about this guitar is Rickenbacker, with Pete Townshend's urging, finally pulled their head out of their collective ass and put a nice 660 style 1 3/4 wide nut neck on a 12 string, which makes it much easier to play than the standard Rickenbacker 12 string. I've got this one strung with Tomastic Infeld flat wound 10s, which are just a marvelous guitar string. Handmade in Vienna. What the hell do they make in Vienna these days other than maybe Audis or something? But they make Tomastic Infeld guitar strings, and they're wrapped with the red silk at the end. Just a really great string. Stays in tune forever. Set of strings will last you probably 5 years or so, but that's a great guitar that I've outfitted with the gold plastic and, custom made truss rod cover that I made at home, and the stovetop knobs just to finish it off. A great 12 string. It's the only 12 string in my small collection, and I don't think I need another one. Moving on here, we've got the Who's debut LP, My Generation, on Decca Records that I bought back in the early 80s from the Cosmic Airplane in Salt Lake City. I've got that framed here on the wall. Nothing too fancy or special, but means a lot to me. Moving along here to the right, we come upon my recent acquisition of a Paul Weller signed 1988 Rickenbacker 330 that was professionally finished in the Lichtenstein Wham print that's currently hanging in the Tate Gallery in London. Saw that in 2015 when I went to see about the Young Idea at Somerset House. The cool thing about this guitar, apart from the fact that it is completely professionally done, the paint is like out of a factory. It's that good. I'm going to move up here. I don't know if this will help you appreciate this guitar, but it is just immaculate. Much better than actually the original that I saw at the Somerset House that I guess somebody painted by hand. So it's really not fabulously done, but let me tell you, man, this one is. It's even got the humbucking Gibson pickup in the neck position like the original guitar did. Unfortunately, this guitar is not, a 78 or a 79 Rickenbacker. It's an 88, but the guy who had this done commissioned it, and when it was done, he chased Paul Weller around Los Angeles for like 3 years, trying to get him to sign this guitar. Finally, Weller relented, came out, looked at the guitar, and by Lee's account said something like, "This is spot on, mate. Perfect." And went ahead and signed it to Lee. It looks like as Lee, but that's a funky T. To Lee, Peace. Paul Weller, 2010. Now, there are other Paul Weller signed Rickenbackers out there, but I think every other one is either in Europe or the UK. This may well be the only Paul Weller signed Rickenbacker in North America. So I'm really glad that the guy was willing to let it go for much less than he was originally asking for it. I don't know why nobody bought it here in the US. Probably because most of us Yanks have our heads up our collective ass at the moment, and have done for some time, as most of us didn't catch on to the jam. I don't know how that didn't happen. But if Donald Trump is any indication of where we Yanks have our heads at the moment, it's certainly up our collective asses. But this is a great guitar. I'm privileged to have it. Moving along here, we've got a framed bootleg jam LP, Alone in a Crowd. I love this pick of Paul Weller from, 1982. He's really got the, I don't know what look that is, probably Steve Marriott, yeah? Small faces, hairstyle going there. The gift period, maybe even a little later. 100 of these LPs were made. I've got number 99, so that's pretty cool. And then above that, also in a frame, I've got the Jam USA release EP, which has, as you can see, some just absolutely wonderful jam tracks on it. My favorite being Tales from the Riverbank, probably in my top 3 jam songs, along with Man in the Corner Shop. You can see I kind of go for that melancholy, somewhat psychedelic sound that Weller was tapping into in the early 80s. But I think D'Souza, who was the photographer for these shots at the, Chiswick Park in London, where the Beatles did the same sort of picture scenes 15, 18 years earlier. I just absolutely love the look and the sound of this EP. So it made the wall. Sorry about the glare. Okay, moving to the right, we come upon my most recent acquisition. It is a Rickenbacker 1991 Model 330 that I saw on eBay. And without a case, some frickin' pawn shop in New York City was offering this thing. And it was just, a standard 330. But the thing that really caught my eye about this guitar is it has some absolutely, gorgeous, in my opinion, authentic wear to it. Most Rickenbacker owners are very careful with their guitars and keep them in immaculate condition. And this one has just had the absolute hell beaten out of it, which I really like. People who play their guitars hard, like Weller did. And this one's got all kind of authentic wear. You can see there on the inside of the F-hole some upstroke wear and some chipping, and the black paint is faded to a nice kind of patina. You can just tell this guitar has been around the block so many times, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I had this sticker set that this wonderful guy in England sent me a couple years ago for free. Just sent me the Exits the black Rickenbacker that Paul Weller gave to Steve Craddock some years back. He gave me the entire sticker set for free, sent it over from the UK, and I've just been waiting for the right guitar, and this is the right guitar. Despite the fact that it's not a 70s Rick, because those are rare as hen's teeth, I'm finding. This is an early 90s, so it's got the bigger headstock, but what the hell, man, I don't care. It's got this great wear on it that just, and it also smells of cigarettes and alcohol and thousands of hours of sweaty playing. I just absolutely love it. So I christened it with the Paul Weller stickers, giving it the look of his 330 from, I'd say 79 to 80 before he added more stickers to it. But this guitar plays about as well. Actually, it plays lower and better than any guitar in my current collection. 0.03 millimeters at the 12th fret on both sides. Really nice. So I was very happy to acquire that guitar recently, and I look forward to playing it on more jam videos in the future. Moving to the right, I've got my wife's old Rubber Soul album in a frame from her childhood, which she, played the thing pretty much until it couldn't play anymore, until the grooves had worn so deeply. So I thought it deserved a frame, even though my favorite Beatles album is probably a Revolver. Rubber Soul comes very close. Probably followed by Magical Mystery Tour. I love that album. I was a little kid listening to that. My siblings had all the Beatles records, and I'd go into their room and pilfer them and play them on my own turntable. And anyway, Beatles really influenced pretty much everything that I love about music. Okay, moving on. We come here to kind of an old standby of mine. This is a 1966 Rickenbacker Model 335 that when I picked it up off of Reverb.com, actually traded a Les Paul, a 2007 Les Paul for it, straight across. And this thing was absolutely beat to hell when I got it. If you notice, you'll see a block there at the neck pickup. That's because some genius had routed it for a humbucker. By the time I got it, it had the original toaster put back in place, and then a bunch of Bondo slapped around it to fill in the cavity. So I sent it to my luthier. He found a nearly identical matching piece of maple, cut it and set it in there, and did the frets and everything else. And I put on, of course, the gold plastic and the gold stovetop knobs, and made another homemade truss rod cover, which turned out really good. But this guitar, like the one next to it, has lots of really honest, hard road wear on it. I just love it. How it's rubbed, and this maple glow has turned to just this wonderful shade. When you take off the pickguard, you can see that the guitar is actually quite light, the maple underneath. It's really aged to this wonderful honey kind of amber, and you can see a little bit of it's so late I can't even think straight, but we can see a little bit of the tiger striping there. What do we call that? The flame. Yeah, there we go. Flame maple showing up on this nice old guitar. But it's got really wonderful sound, really wonderful action. I just love this guitar. Okay, moving on here. I've got this big framed print that I got from the Jam exhibition about the Young Idea at the Somerset House in London in the summer of 2015. I went with my wife to London, and she was kind enough to let me spend an afternoon at this exhibit, and I brought home this poster, and I think it cost me friggin' $300 to have it framed like this, but that's the Jam as I really love them. Young, hungry, angry, and on the verge of writing, some really great music, even though they'd already written some. That first LP in the city is just freaking amazing. Okay, down here, we've got kind of a corner of a bunch of guitars, and let me just do one at a time quickly. So this is a 1968 Rickenbacker Model 365. And this one I saw, I think also on eBay, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. It just has this wonderful bird's eye maple. I don't know if that's showing up on this or not, but it's just bird's eye maple, the whole thing. Rickenbacker used to make such beautiful guitars. They still do, but they only use bird's eye like this on special editions now, but this was kind of standard back in the 60s. So this guitar is about as solid and clean as you'll see a 60s Rickenbacker be. 1968, great year, of course, Summer of Love. And I went ahead and again swapped out the white for the gold. There's the truss rod cover that I made. And the pick guards from Tony at Pick Guardian. He does a great job. And this one, I managed to find a set of 1968 Kluson tuners with white or aged creamy white buttons, which I think look fabulous on this because it matches the switch tip on this guitar. So little tiny details, but details, that's what modernism is all about, right? Details. And this one's got it, man. This is a great guitar. Okay. Next, let's move over here. This is a fairly recent acquisition. This was actually a garage-made imitation of a 1960 Rickenbacker Model 4000 bass. So you notice just the single pickup there, the horseshoe pickup. I picked out the maple for this guitar. My buddy, one of my LA buddies, Bob Thompson from Costa Mesa, made this guitar in his garage. It took him almost 2 years to complete, but hey, slow work is often good work, and this is an absolutely beautiful bass. Right down to all the details. The bridge cover that I got from Winfield Vintage. The knobs, these are hard to come by and expensive. The knurled, I guess is what they call it, knobs. And that horseshoe pickup and the finger, kind of the finger latch there that you can hold on to, and beautiful rosewood neck going up to, of course, the gold Rickenbacker truss rod cover that I had Bob make for this guitar. Anyway, I don't play much bass anymore, but this is an absolutely beautiful bass that plays like silk. Got Tomastic Infeld, I think, or did Bob recommend another brand of flat wounds, but I've got flat wounds on this bass. Beautiful piece. Okay, real quick. Framed Style Council introducing there. I love that. I love this this photo shoot that Weller and Mick Talbot had done in the early 80s, 83, I think, in Paris. Had to frame that one. Okay, next guitar. Stop talking about that other shit and move on to guitars. This is a 1968 Gibson SG that I got onto Etsy, the website Etsy, and found some 1968 wallpaper in Paisley, and I bought it for $5 and made a tracing with the original guard and backed a clear guard that Tony from Pick Guardian made for me. And it took me a couple of hours to get all this on there just right, but I did, and I think it looks fabulous. Of course, the stock pick guard is black. Still got that. Of course, you always keep all the old parts. But everything else on this is stock, but I just love the Paisley, the vibe that a Paisley print gives this guitar that, Pete Townsend, among others, George Harrison also played an SG, made famous. Interestingly, when Paul Weller was asked which of all of the guitars he's owned would he want to have on the proverbial desert island, he said it would be his 1968 Gibson SG, which is exactly what this guitar is here. He said it offered the widest variety of tones and was, in fact, in his opinion, the most beautiful guitar that he's ever owned. And I was really happy to pick this one up for a relatively good price. It is really clean. 1968 Gibson SG standard with those chrome P90 pickups and the Maestro vibrato that's very sensitive. It's just a great piece. Okay, and this here, I'm going to back up now, is a 1974 Fender Bassman amp, right? With a Boss ME50 pedal there at the bottom. But this amp I bought here in Salt Lake City, and the guy I bought it from said he got it out of the basement of a church, and that it had been sitting there with covers on for decades and was never really played. And he wanted $1,000 for it, and I just thought, oh God, that's such a beautiful amplifier. It's basically as clean as it would have been just rolling off the factory line there in Corona at the Fender factory. So I decided I had to have it. My wife was sweet enough to let me go ahead and splurge on it. It is a bass amp, but the reality is most of these were used as guitar amps because they have such great sound. They've got 4 10-inch original Fender speakers in it. The thing just sounds marvelous. Tubes, the whole bit. It's a really sweet amp, and I like to play through it. Okay, this guitar, kind of an interesting thing. Didn't have it last time. This is started out its life as just a regular, standard 2007 Rickenbacker model 620 in maple glow. And I got this for a deal on eBay because I knew I was going to have it refinished in Paisley by a guy who is a master at Paisley finishes in Florida. So I bought the guitar. I think I paid $900 for it. I sent it away to Florida, and there it stayed for another year while it got this Paisley finish. And let me tell you, this finish might as well have just rolled off the factory because it is meticulous and gorgeous. It's a gold outer spray with an inner kind of pink, various pinks and greens, and a cream flake in between there. You can see that in the Paisley. This is an absolutely gorgeous guitar. The only one of its kind in the world, of course. No one else has done this to a 600 series Rick. Outfitted it with the gold plastic and put one of these accent vibrato by Paul remakes by Winfield Vintage. They do great work there on there. It's got the 3/4 scale neck, which is kind of cool, and of course up to the gold Rickenbacker pickguard, and then the Paisley headstock. Just freaking cool as hell. Probably the most mod looking guitar on the planet, in my opinion. Some people think it's country looking. I don't think so. I think it looks like a mod would play this thing. Not frickin', Eric Burton or Brad Paisley. I don't think so. This looks too 60s, too modish for me for that. Yeah, forget about country music, man. That's the one kind of music that just doesn't speak to me. Okay, now here we've got an early 80s model Roland Jazz Chorus 50. Now, I bought this off of Goodwill.com a few years ago for $120, and it works like a dream. And I'm not sure there is a better clean amp for clean tones on the planet than Roland amps, Jazz Chorus amps from the 80s. They don't get better than this. I really like this amp. Then, let's see if we can go underneath here. I've got a chrome rack. Right, if you can see that chrome rack. It's a Vox rack. But underneath it, I have my wife's Uncle Dave's Gibson Skylark amp from 1963. And Dave has a gold record from 1969 with his band, It's a Beautiful Day. They had a hit single, White Bird, that many of you are probably familiar with. It was their one big hit, and Dave has spent the rest of his life kind of chasing that same fame and fortune that never really came back. Had a bad manager, the same manager that was with Jefferson Airplane and Moby Grape, I think, who screwed him out of a bunch of money. He's still performing, and he's 76 years old, trying to scrape a living, and he's doing it honestly because he's a great musician. But hey man, I got one of his old amps, this Gibson Skylark. It's all tube. It's got a great 10-inch speaker in it, and it'll take all kind of effects, and it just sounds great. Okay, moving here to the right again, we come to what is probably the most valuable guitar in my collection, and that is this 1959 Fender Jazzmaster. It is all original, and I'm really lucky to have this guitar. This guitar was actually given, I said, to a friend of a friend who was on his Mormon mission to Manchester. Some investigator just handed him this Jazzmaster in an original case, and he kept it his whole mission, 18 months, brought it home, kept it for a few years, handed it off to another buddy of mine who was the singer in my college band where I played the bass, and we played it for a gig or two before our guitarist bought a Rickenbacker. It's a fabulous guitar, but there it sat in my buddy's closet for the next 30 years. And just a few years ago, he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, would you have any interest in that Fender Jazzmaster, that 59 Jazzmaster?" And I said, "What do you think?" So anyway, long story short, here it is. It is really clean. It's got some nicks and scratches, which you might imagine from, 50 plus, 55, 56 years of playing. But boy, it's got great sound. I've got it strung right now with Tomastic Infeld flat wounds that just give it the sweetest, warmest tone. But yeah, this is probably the nicest guitar, most valuable guitar anyway in my collection. Probably worth, I don't know, $7-8 grand, something like that. but I won't be selling it anytime soon because I'm not sure if my buddy will ask for it back. He might. I don't know why other than to sell it, but you know, there's this thing in the law that says possession is what, 9/10? So I'm hoping as time passes, this gem just becomes mine for good. Okay, going across the channel here, we're coming to the other side, and here we just got a, this is my one acoustic guitar that's functional. I've got my brother's, older brother's 1960s Guild 12 string in that case, but it is a frickin' train wreck, man, so I won't even look at that. But this is a Gibson Southern Jumbo from 2007. It's a wonderful acoustic guitar. Gibson makes high quality stuff. I highly recommend this guitar. In addition to like the J45, and pretty much any acoustic guitar by Gibson is wonderful. Okay, and then over here I've got my workhorse Vox AC30. Nothing special, 2007. CC2, I think, is the subtype of this amp, but I love it. It's wonderful. It sits on top of my great-great-grandmother's Civil War chest, dating from the 1850s. Strong as a piece of granite, but and you know, to prove it, I've got this beast of an AC30 sitting on top of it. Great amplifier. You know, Weller used a lot of these, as did a lot of other musicians, so I had to have one. Down here is actually kind of an inauspicious secret weapon, this Peavey Backstage 30. Now, why in the hell would I have a Peavey? Well, I have one because apparently Paul Weller discovered the Peavey Backstage 30 in very early 1980 or 1979. And if you watch the video on YouTube where he plays opposite Joy Division, and I think the Jam does the Eaton Rifles, you'll see when Weller goes up to the amp during the solo to get a bunch of feedback and, you know, all that he's doing during that real noisy spot of that fabulous song. Guess what? He doesn't go to the Marshall stack, which isn't even turned on. He goes to this little Peavey Backstage 30 that is turned on and stands in front of it with his Rick trying to get all kind of feedback. And so I snagged one of these off eBay for like $100, and guess what? The thing just will tear the paint off the walls. It's got great distorted sound, and it's got it's not muddy. It's like a biting, clean, distorted sound, which is exactly what Weller cherished. So yeah, I picked one of these up, and I love to use it. Highly recommend it. Okay. Let's see, moving over here. Okay, above the AC30, that's probably my favorite Jam album of all time, Sound Effects. There's not a bad song on that album. It's just pure genius, in my opinion. Man in the Corner Shop, Scrape Away, I'm Different Now, Start. You know, the truth is probably my least favorite song on this LP is That's Entertainment. As cool a song as that is, it just kind of bores me. But the rest of the album, even though That's Entertainment was a #1, I think is fabulous. So there it is on the wall. Next to that, I've got a 1969 Gretsch Nashville model, Chet Atkins Nashville model, that I got from some guy in Oregon for a very good price, so I just had to buy it. This guitar is probably capable of the widest variety of tones of any guitar in my small collection. It's just wonderful American workmanship. And by the way, we all know all the best guitars are American made, right? There's just no debate about that, is there? Gretsch, Fender, Rickenbacker, Gibson, on and on and on. Martin, you name it. Americans, we're in a bad way at the moment, but wow, have we made some great musical instruments, and this is one of them. This guitar is capable of some of the warmest, softest, jazzy tones, and then if it's got knobs and switches all over the damn thing. If you get the switches in the right position, you can get some very clean, bright stuff too. Okay, so that's the one Gretsch right now in my collection. Here we come to frame print, framed actually album. Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow from 1967. Oh my gosh, this is just an absolutely fabulous album from the psychedelic era. I love the whole thing. I don't even know what to say about it. It's just some of the best, most iconic music of the 60s in one album. I would recommend it to anybody who wanted to just understand what the 60s were all about. The Jefferson Airplane. Pretty freaking awesome. 1967. Next to that, this is a really wonderful guitar. Paul Weller has this guitar in his collection. In fact, it is his workhorse. His is, I think he's got a couple of these now. But this one is from 1964. So I think it's older than his, the one he plays the most is a 66. So this is a few years older than his. But this Epiphone Casino from 64 is, Beatles era, top-notch American quality all the way. This guitar came out of the same factory in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Let's see if I can get any. No, can't really see in that F hole for the sticker. Same factory in Kalamazoo, Michigan that made Gibson all those years ago. So it is just same quality as a Gibson E330. Basically the same guitar. But I just love this what do they call this? Again, it's late. I'm trying to remember some of this. It's a, Desert Tan Sunburst. Beautiful guitar. Same burst that Weller has on his. Up to that headstock there. And I happened onto this guitar from the Chico, California Craigslist. Real quick story. It was listed very poorly as an 83 Epiphone archtop. That's all it said. So I clicked on the link, and this is before Craigslist was as widely hunted as it is now. Probably back in, 05, 06? And the picture popped up, and as soon as I saw the picture, I knew it was not from 1983. I knew it was the 60s. So I had the guy, and he turned out to be like a 20-year-old kid, send me the serial number, which he did, and I ran it, and it came back 1964. And he was asking $800. So, boy, ethical dilemma time, right? So I decided to tell the kid what he had and just kind of throw myself on his mercy and ask how much he wanted. Once he heard that it was a 64 and not an 83, he rose his price by $300. It was the quickest $1,100 I'd ever sent anybody via PayPal. And I love this guitar. It's probably a $4,000 guitar, $5,000 guitar. I don't know, something like that. It does have a mild headstock repair, which lowers its value some. But hey, man, it's what comes with the guitar, right? So yeah, great guitar. Happy to have it. Wonderful to play. This is my favorite Style Council pick of all time. Well, no, that's not true. The one with Weller's black and white shoe in front of the Eiffel Tower is my favorite, but this is number 2. This is just a fabulous photo shoot. The A Paris EP from 1983. Just classy and just iconic visual there with Mick Talbot in the foreground and Weller in the background. Awesome. Okay, moving on. We come to this 1966 Epiphone Casino 230T. So notice it's the same sunburst, same everything as its next door neighbor, only it's only got one pickup, right? The 230T was the Casino with one pickup. And I managed to get this off the St. Louis Craigslist about a year previous to the one from Chico. And this guy wanted all of $1,000 for this guitar. And I shot him that 1,000 as fast as I could, and here it came. And wow, is this guitar beautiful. It has the prettiest sunburst on it, and all of the white, I want to say ribbing, though it's not ribbing. It is, again, it's late, I can't even think. The binding, thank you, brain. The binding is, everything is yellowed with all that age and play and cigarette smoke, etc. Just a fabulous guitar. It plays almost as loud unplugged as it does plugged in. It even comes with that wonderful Epiphone logo truss rod cover, which is very rare. But yeah, just another fabulous guitar that I'm really lucky to have with the trematone vibrato. I just love that. Geez, that's a $500 part all on its own, right? Okay, moving on here. Joy Division. Other than the Jam, I would say Joy Division is probably my favorite band out of the late 70s, early 80s from the UK. This is not one of their two albums, but rather a bootleg. But I just love the image. It captures kind of the Joy Division ethos as well as anything else, that winter scene. Love that stuff. And then finally over here we have this really cool 1965, my birth year, Fender Musicmaster 2. Now, what is it that what is it that makes it a 2 rather than just a Musicmaster? Well, this guy's got a full-length neck, whereas the Musicmaster, which was a student model, had a 3/4 neck, little teeny thing. I've had one of those. Paisley, very cool, but this is better. So this one was Olympic white originally, and with all the years, it has yellowed to a nice cream, almost a TV yellow. Wonderful. Now, I thought, okay, I love this guitar. It plays the neck. This Fender neck is about as good as any neck I've ever played. What am I going to do to this guitar to make it more interesting to me? So I picked up this 1965 Fender Mustang bridge and vibrato. So this came on some of the Mustangs in 1965, so I bought the part and had one of my luthiers professionally install this thing, and he did a perfect job. And then, again, I go back on Etsy and I get some wallpaper from the 1950s. Gave like $3 for the sheet, and look at that. Doesn't that look like your pajamas from the 1960s? Just those colors, the gold, the green. It's just the whole thing. You back up, you look at that on there, and you say, that's like the most bitchin' surf guitar I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, this is a really fine, cool guitar. I love it. That vibrato is very sensitive. The one Fender pickup is original. All the wiring is original. Very strong. Just a really fun guitar to play. Well, yeah. So, basically, There's an ad from down in the lyric down in the tube station at midnight that Weller borrowed. That's an actual British Rail ad. That is my music room as of the summer of 2018. So, listen, all of you who have stayed with this to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you very much for watching my channel and my videos. Listen, guys, I know I'm not very good. I'm nothing but a hack guitar player, amateur at best. That's all I ever will be, because I just don't have the time to devote to getting really good at this. But all of this midlife crisis stuff, given I'm 52 now, all of this just connects me to the music and the stuff I loved when I was coming of age in the early 80s, late 70s. And you know what? Paul Weller and the Jam really are the heart of it all. I still consider myself a mod, even though I'm far too mature for such things in formal circles, professional circles. But to all of you, I can come out as a mod and display my average at best guitar skills. But I appreciate your interest and your patience. I'll keep practicing, and hey man, keep listening to the Jam. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.